Hello. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to get right into it today and talk about the new album, Alreet, by Edvard Graham Lewis. You might know him as Graham Lewis. He's part of a little band called Wire. And as you know, I love all things Wire. And I enjoy talking about anything Wire does and anything their respective members do. And these guys are very busy when they're not making Wire albums. They make their own stuff. It's pretty cool. And I love talking about these guys. They're one of my all-time favorite bands. And I really, really like the new album. Again, it's called Alreet. And I'll get right into it. Alreet. I ordered the album. And by the way, before I get into it, I'm actually representing my subject today right here on my t-shirt. Look at that. I went the whole hog and ordered the album from Lewis's Bandcamp. If you bought the album, they threw in a t-shirt. I think this was an extra 20 bucks. You know, come on. Why not support? Why not represent? I love this band. Sometimes every blue moon, a band that I've loved for decades, literally, I'll try to step up and throw a few extra bucks that way because I just love this band and I love these guys and I love Graham Lewis and I'm happy to wear this. I don't normally like wearing t-shirts with words and messages on them, but no one's going to know what this means. I'm going to walk into a store and they're going to see this and be like, what the hell? EGL? Alreet? I like that idea. I don't want people to read me and then, give me a thumbs up because they understand what I'm saying or they can relate. I don't want people to relate to me. I want them to look at my shirt and be like, what the fuck is that? Maybe it might trigger something and they'll go and do their own research later and then they'll find Graham Lewis on their own. I love that idea. Probably won't happen, but I love that idea. And I'm proud to own this shirt. Here's the new album. And Graham Lewis has been doing his own thing for a long time. He's recorded with other members of Wire and other named bands like Dome. I've talked about Dome before in past videos. Love Dome. Graham Lewis has also recorded under different names. Like he had a name in the 80s called He Said. He put out a couple of records on mute that I would highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. He put out the first He Said album. Oh man, I'm going to forget the title. I think it was called Hail. Hail, right? I'm pretty sure it came out in 1986. So forgive me if I'm off by a year or two, guys. I can't always. I'm 99% of the time I'm right when it comes to years and names and things like that. But every blue moon I get things wrong. But I think it came out in 1986. He put out another album called Take Care, as he said, and that also came out on Mute Records. And that came out a couple years later. I want to say 1988. Again, mercy if I get that wrong by a year or two. I would highly recommend both of those albums, particularly Hail. His first He Said album is really, really fantastic. It's so good. They're both good, but check that out. But I don't want to get too far off the beaten path here. I want to focus on this. This album, like anything Graham Lewis has done, hits me in a good spot. What I like about Graham Lewis, well, musically first, I'll get into the music. When he does his solo stuff, it tends to be very electronic, which I love. That is not a criticism. That's actually pure 100% love. His solo stuff is, I dare to say it, pretty pop. Like even the He Said stuff is pretty pop. When I say pretty pop, I mean like it's relatively pop, not like pretty sparkling pop. I mean like yeah, it's kind of pop. I mean it is pop, I guess, but. I mean, in comparison to a lot of what Wire does, Wire can be pop and they can not be pop. They can be the antithesis of pop sometimes. But Graham Lewis's solo stuff is generally it's very electronic based and it's got a pop sensibility to it. And that's what's fun about it. But the juxtaposition to the pop music are his lyrics. And that's like when you're thinking of Colin Newman as a lyricist, at least for me, I think of very abstract ideas, lots of wordplay, lots of innuendo, lots of indirect language. I mean, it's very direct when you want to take it any way you want to take it. I think that's what I love about Colin Newman. His lyrics can be kind of absurd and nonsensical. A lot of times they are. But I love that. That ambiguity is what makes the lyrical content of Wire fun for me. You can kind of take Colin Newman's lyrics and shoot them in any direction you want. Graham Lewis is much more direct with his lyrics, and I love that. And I just love the guy's voice. He's got such a distinctive voice, that deep baritone, and again, speaking of juxtapositions, that's one of the things I love about Wire is that Colin Newman's voice is kind of high and more androgynous, where Graham Lewis has got the very deep, manly voice. You know, it's a force to be reckoned with. Love that. Love that in the context of Wire, and I love it in the context of his solo stuff. He's got a voice that demands your attention. It's a deep baritone rumble that shakes your speakers, and it's no different here. Another thing I love about Wire, these guys are still putting out great records. I mean, these guys are in their 70s now, right? They have to be. I mean, when did the first Wire stuff come out? Almost 50 years ago. These guys are in their 70s, okay? And they're still putting out pretty subversive music, pretty ahead of its time, always thinking ahead type music. Yeah, this is electronic pop probably at its heart, but what sets this apart are Lewis's vocals and his lyrics. And the lyrics on here have really been hitting the right spot lately. As I always do with my album reviews, I don't want to hold your hand too much. I really like the idea of people discovering this kind of stuff on their own. But the closing lyric on this album is pretty beautiful, and it sums up how I feel about the whole world lately. But it sums up the album very well. He says, this won't be word for word, but he says, without humanity, who the fuck are we? Or what the fuck are we? Without humanity, what the fuck are we? And he just repeats it and repeats it until the song fades out. And that's kind of what this album is about, really. He's taking a close look at the world, and he's at the end of it, he's just like, what the fuck is going on? And I don't hear a lot of that happening with many other albums, people who are pointed and direct with their lyrics. And this album really hit the spot, and it's continuing to hit the spot. I got this album a few weeks ago, listened to it multiple times, and yeah, it's really scratching an itch. It's one of those, I didn't know this album was coming out. It came out, I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, a new Graham Lewis album, I need to pick this up. And it was even better than I was expecting. I just love it. I love it when that happens. Like, as I get older, I've had these experiences a lot in my life, but as you get older, you feel like you've heard everything. You've done this, you've heard that. The world gets a little smaller as you get older. You've just heard and experienced more stuff. And in the world of music, it's harder to have that feeling. It's harder to come away from an album feeling like you haven't heard this kind of thing before. So when it happens, you cherish it. I definitely have this feeling with this album because lyrically, it's imparting a message that I'm not hearing anybody else impart. Now, I don't hear every album. I don't have time to listen to everything like most people on the planet. This is what I have time to listen to. And lyrically, this is really hitting home for me. It's illustrating deep frustrations I have with our current planet. And Graham Lewis is obviously feeling that too. And what I really love about it also is his experience. It's not like Graham Lewis hasn't traveled the world and seen things for what they are and met many people and had every experience you can think of. He has. And so when he says, what the fuck are we without humanity, it hits home, man. For someone to be as experienced as he is and to be feeling the exact same way I am, it means a lot. Loving this album. And it's just one of those things I didn't know I needed, and then it came out and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need right now. Edvard Graham Lewis, Alreet. And I'll link you to the Bandcamp, by the way. This is where I bought this. I learned of this album at Juno. It popped up on Juno. And when I see something pop up on Juno, I try to search out the Bandcamp, see if there's a different version. Every time a record comes out, there's multiple versions, but this was the only version on vinyl I saw, and it had this T-shirt with it. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna represent and give Graham Lewis my money because I want to give him my money. This guy's brought so many hours, years of enjoyment to my life. It's the least I can do. 8 tracks, as you can see. Get the gatefold with some lyrics on the inside. Very nice touch. You don't see that a lot anymore. Just simple physical touches like that. And then the record itself is white. I didn't see another variation of this color-wise. I only saw white. The pressing's all right. It's okay. This is on Apple Music, so if you want to stream it and get a nice sounding digital copy of it. In fact, that's what I've been listening to. I bought this. I did test out. I played the record once. It sounds fine. Digital copy sounds even better, in my opinion, but I couldn't not pick up the physical copy. I mean, what am I going to do? Have a hole in my wire collection? That can't happen. Anyway, love this record. If you love Wire, what are you waiting for? This is the best solo album from any of the Wire members I've heard in a long time. A long time. Top to bottom, 8 tracks, roughly 45 minutes of Edvard Graham Lewis imparting very direct messages. His lyrics have never been better. And he's a man of the world. He's seen a lot of things. He's got a lot of wisdom. And I deeply appreciate that about Graham Lewis. Alreet?